I think that I'm actually really genuinely interested in not, and I don't want what you're telling the press version, but is something that we talked about a little bit is how you working on an animated movie, because of the nature of how long it takes, and that you can actually audition scenes in an animatic, and you can talk about what that is and how that it sort of changes sort of in some ways I think how we've always thought about making movies. Like that I think we sort of have this idea of, you try and get the script as great as you can get it, and then you go and you make that script with these people, and you modify if you have to, but pretty much you want to stick to, you assume you knew better sitting in the room.
And you deliver on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is one thing. A couple of things. The process of making this movie was so peculiar, and it took quite a lot of time just to figure out how am I going to go about it. I kind of thought that I was going to prepare the movie, the script and the sets, and work on the puppets and all that kind of stuff, and then we would just hand it over. That we'd record the voices and edit it with storyboards and draw the shots, but then it would just be handed over to a team of animators, and they would a year later give me the finished film.
Right.
And I would just put in an order for one movie like this, and that was not the process at all. In any way, it was the most involving, time-consuming, filmmaking process I've ever experienced, and it was because with a live-action movie, your day is, as you know, we need to try to do these shots, and you get there and you spend the whole day saying, okay, all right, good, let's do it. Oh, great. And then you're on to the next one, and then the sun goes down, or whatever your time limit is. And it's a sequential race through the day.
Right.
And with this kind of movie, we had, at the most, we had 30 units going on at once. So on my computer, I had this computer system that we used where I could look through each camera on the set, and I would get a call from Jeremy, our producer, who would say, "On unit, can you please go to unit 12A or whatever it is?" It was never just 12. I don't know why. And I would go to that and see it, and we'd say, try to figure out that problem, and talk to our director of animation or an animator, and send emails, and we deal with that, and then go over to this, and go over to the next one that's happening. And the course of the day was bouncing back and forth among all these things that are happening incredibly slowly, and it's sort of the opposite of a live action one. And at the same time, a whole team of people designing the next sets, because there is no set if you don't build it, because it's it may be the size of this table, and people and we're still editing the voices and drawing shots and all those things. So it's just it's a different process of just bouncing back and forth between tasks slowly through the day. But one thing that I feel like that I got from it, in the last movie that I did in the Darjeeling Limited, we had this river scene, like a kind of action sort of thing, and I felt like I felt like our river wasn't big enough. We didn't get the right river in the first place, and I wasn't. And when we were editing it, I struggled with it. We figured it out, but I sort of.
Yeah, I remember you telling me actually that it was that you were worried about it, and then when I saw it, I didn't even know what you had done.
Right. Well, we cut out most of it. That was one of the solutions. But I feel like if I was in that position now, I would have done an animatic. I would have done that. We would have drawn the scene, planned it out. I feel like Spielberg, who frankly could have done this river scene without any preparation whatsoever, I feel. But when he does action scenes, I think he does draw them and plan them. And
Do people know what an animatic is? Do we?
animatic is like a version of the storyboards that you kind of film, and you can have camera moves and you have sound on it, and it's like a sketch version of the movie.
Right. When I first saw the movie, I saw a combination of what you had shot. Maybe half was what you had shot, and then the rest would be drawings, moving drawings.
Yeah, and the process of making the movie, once you start shooting, is you're just slowly over a year replacing one shot, animatic shot at a time, with something that's been actually animated.
But then you can change, because also the movie feels it's filmed very much like your other movies, even though it's animated. You could change, I suppose, if you wanted, to shoot coverage. I mean, how does coverage work in an animated?
Well, it's interesting because this is another thing I feel I've learned differently. Yes, you probably know that and are trying to get me to say the thing, which now occurs to me.
Yeah.
I've often on live action films felt like I should have shot the close up. I often like to stage the thing, and there are definitely spots where I say it would be great if we had the close up, and I don't know if we can make it back to Rajasthan to do that. And with an animated movie, you can shoot the scene however you want, and if you need a close-up, you can draw it and cut it in and test it and say, well, here's what's wrong with the close-up, and but if we had this version of it, you can practice it, and I feel like it's a good, it's what it is it's the chance to really see what it would be like if you did it the other way, and then you can do it. So that was and also seeing some things like that work where I got to rethink it and not do how you described the way we would normally work, which is just kind of launch into it with our instincts. Instead, see what would happen if I had done it a bit differently. I think that will affect how when the next time I'm doing a live action movie, I feel I'm going to have some of these things in mind.
How much did you storyboard the other movies?
A lot, but I never looked at anything, in time.
Right.
Always just drawings, and I've never.
So you're still guessing that it's like based on a feeling that these things are going to go together.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually experiencing it.
Yes, exactly. And usually if you draw it, you've checked it out pretty. You have a pretty good sense, but sometimes with the action stuff, do you ever draw the shots before you shoot?
I sometimes have tried to draw the shots. I more write them out and describe them now, because I can't draw well enough that I get too hung up on that.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it's something a little more involved, I'll draw it. But sometimes I don't know. Do you feel this way? I mean, sometimes it's good. In some ways, it's nice not to know. It's like that you want to go on feeling. You could test this out more, because you could do it on video. You could do it. I mean, you could do it.
Yeah. I used to feel completely. I don't want to test. The day we're going to do it, and it's going to really happen, and that's how I've always felt. But then I have had times when it just didn't.
Then you become a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting though, because it is. I think you're right. It's certain scenes need it. Maybe would benefit more than others.
Yeah.
But if you don't write action scenes into your movies, then
it protects you.
Right.
Well, Margot, I feel like I would like to do a movie like Margot at the Wedding. I really love that movie, and I envied watching it. I envied the process of making that movie is. You have a story and your group of actors, and you go to one place essentially and play the whole, move around this house and outside and around and into the town. But it's much more contained. It's been such a long time since I've done a film, that had where it was that focused in that way.
I always like those movies that take place either in one setting or one night. There's something that's sort of contained in a way. It's also probably good to give yourself those rules. I mean, it can be to just start off and say, this is sort of like after hours type movies,
Yeah.
or Something Wild. There's that genre in the '80s which I liked a lot of those movies that sort of all were like ordinary people taken on an adventure, but it's all one night or one
Yeah.
thing.
Yes. I think it's a Bruce Willis one.
Yeah, there's a Blake Edwards, Bruce Willis one, Blind Date.
That's it.
Yeah.
I feel like there aren't that many people who would have come back with Blake Edwards' Blind Date that fast or
Right.
at all.
Yeah, and probably not that many people in the audience who really give a shit either. I should have saved that revelation for dinner.
Okay, what next?